Hello F11 members, and welcome to part 5 of the fundamentals of post-production. What I'd like to do today is just recap on a few things we've talked about, and just to illustrate how simple and quick this whole business of post-production, in particular the raw conversion stage, can be if you get things right in camera. And to do that, I'd like to work with this very simple picture here, shot in the south of France, just of a doorway in a little village. A very simple image, and this is my starting point. This is the raw file straight in from the camera. First thing I look at is the histogram. Not a bad exposure at all, a perfect exposure in fact. There's just a touch of clipping of shadows there, but the white point is pretty well pegged. The thing is, I'm not gonna move down through the options here. If I wanted to adjust the color balance of this picture, I could look at a white area here. By using my white balance selector, I could move that onto there, hit that, and that would then adjust that white so it is in fact a pure white. So I'm going to do that, and that's, you can see, adjusted the color balance a touch there. Normally I don't do that, particularly with a landscape, but in this particular case I think it would be advantageous to have this white as a truly neutral white. Okay, so now I'm just going to move on, and I'm looking at this histogram. We can see there's a bit of a gap up here, so I need to adjust my white point. What this is indicating to me here is that the brightest white in the image, probably here in the window frame, is not a pure white but a bit of a muddy mid-tone. And so just by moving the white point to the right, I make sure we have that perfect spread of the histogram, so that the brightest part of the image is a pure white. I'm just going to move the black a touch just in so that I lose any clipping of the shadows there. And now I look at the picture, and automatically, immediately, I see that the contrast of the picture has been enhanced a touch. We're going to temporarily bypass the presence part of the menu, move straight to the tone curve. And what I'm going to do here is, I could use one of the Lightroom's default settings here, medium contrast, and that gives me quite an appealing picture, puts in a bit of contrast there. Or I could do it manually, and that's what I'm going to do. I quite like to introduce a touch of contrast at this stage. It's shot in very flat, boring light really, so I could do that, and I could also at the same time just adjust the overall density of the picture, and I'm going to go with something around about that. That to me just looks about the right density and the right contrast for the picture. Now you can see by enhancing the contrast, first of all by adjusting white and black points and also the tone curve, I've really given the picture quite a lot of punch. If you look at the two side by side, you can see the effect there. But I've not yet finished with this picture. Moving down here, we come to sharpening, and last week I said about how I find so useful Lightroom's presets. I'm going to use the Sharpen Scenic Tool preset to introduce a bit of capture sharpening to the image. Okay, so that's that done, and I'm quite happy with that level of sharpening. I now move down and I come to lens corrections. I don't, by the way, need noise reduction because I shot the picture at ISO 400, which on this particular camera, a Canon 5D Mark III, very capable camera at high ISOs. Noise is not a problem, so I don't need any noise reduction. I now come to the profile lens corrections, and I could, if I wanted to, enable profile corrections, and that basically corrects any distortion that the camera has the lens has introduced. All lenses distort up to a point. And this is the kind of picture, quite strong architectural lines where a bit of distortion may be apparent. So by doing that, it just corrects that distortion. I'm also worried a bit also about the converging verticals here. I took this picture, the point of view is looking up, which means that the house appears to be falling over backwards. So what I'm going to do now is I go to manual and I'm going to use this vertical transform function to correct those verticals. And if I put a bit of minus transformation on there, distortion on there, it's just, well, if I go too far you can see what it's doing, and if I go the other way it exacerbates the problem. Just by going to around about -7, it corrects things quite conveniently, and now that really does look much tidier and much neater. Those ugly converging verticals are taken care of. But of course what I've done is I have stretched the top of the picture and compressed the bottom, and the impact of doing that is by put this grey area around the image here at the bottom. So now I need to crop that out. So I'm going to go back up to the crop tool here, and now I'm going to just adjust the margins so that that grey area is lost. Now there's a lock here, and that refers to the aspect ratio. If I lock that and go to say that means where it says original, that means it's going to keep the original aspect ratio 2:3 in this particular case. That refers to the relationship of the length of the short side to the long side. This area is 2/3 that area. But I don't need to do that. I want to just crop it as I need to, just to lose those grey areas. I'm not particularly wedded to that aspect ratio, so I do that and I just drag in the margins to suit. I'm just going to take this one to there, and when I'm happy with that cropping I just hit done. And now if you look at the start point and the end point of that picture, I'm quite happy with that. Again, no major work being done on this image, just a combination of subtle yet significant adjustments. This image looks a little bit flat and muddy compared to this, and the impact of taking away those converging verticals has had quite a marked transformation on this picture. At that point, creatively and aesthetically, I'm happy with this picture, and I'm now ready to export it, and that will be the subject of our next video tutorial, the business of exporting the picture. Okay, so we'll look forward to talking to you next month, and keep exposing.